Are you done dancing? Okay, say hello. Alright, welcome back. Thank you for joining us to the last of the video of Patsy Lee. And this is called Patsy Lee, A Dream Come True. I hope you enjoyed her story. If you have any questions about her story, please leave me a comment, or please leave a question in the comments, and I will address it in a special edition of Patsy Lee. However, let's get on with her story. A dream come true. The next morning, when I woke, I could not believe what was going to happen. I had butterflies playing in my stomach. I sat up looking about. Danny was nowhere to be found in the room. I stood and moved out into the hall. That is where I saw Emmy. "Hey, come with me," she told me. "All right," I replied, and moved with her. We stepped outside of the palace. "Where are we going?" I asked her. "To Valhalla, where you are going to get married." Sorry, excuse me. "Did you have sleep and forget?" she asked, laughing. "I had sleep, however, did not forget," I told her. She laughed. "Come," she said, and we moved to the horses and headed to Valhalla. As we arrived and dismounted, she took my hand and pulled me into the palace and through the halls up to the very top floor, and I laughed as she and I moved into a dressing room looking area. This was one floor of the palace I had never been on. She started looking through dresses and pulled out a lavender blue. This is Cecil and my son, and he interrupted our story. Okay. This was one floor of the palace I had never been on. She started looking through dresses and pulled out a lavender blue silk dress with a white lace on the sleeves, the collar, and the hem. She held it up to me. "Try this on," she said, and I took it from her. "It is beautiful. Whose is it?" I asked, and a person came from the back and looked to me with a bright smile. "'Tis was mine. I wore it when Louis and I first wed." I looked up to the high priestess, Vivian. "It is beautiful, mistress," I replied. "Cease that. Try it on," she told me, taking the dress and unzipping the back. "Come on, lose what you're wearing," Vivian told me, and Emmy started to help me undress. I started to laugh. "Emmy, I can do it," I told her, and removed the house dress I wore and stepped into the lavender blue gown. Vivian pulled it up on my shoulders and then zipped it up the back. Then she turned me about and smiled. "Beautiful," she said. "I cannot believe this," I told her. And soon Emmett's wives, my sister, and Sandy were all in the room with me, and each of them were making over me and making me up. They placed ribbons in my hair and polished on my nails and cosmetic on my face. They made me look so much different than I had ever looked in my life. I stood in front of the mirror and could not believe the way I looked. Then a crown was placed on my head. An actual crown. Then the collar was removed. I blinked and looked to Vivian as Juanita took off my collar. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Juanita, a collared female cannot marry. We both know this." "Do not worry, you will get it back," Juanita said. Partina patted me on the back. "Just think how you feel before the performance when Danny removes it. Everything will be all right." Partina laughed. My hands shook. I was a bundle of nerves. It was around 2 passing when we started to leave the room down a back staircase. I never knew this was there. Whose areas are we in? I asked. Mine. This is my area of the palace, Emmy said as the stairs led to a door. As Emmy placed her hand on the panel, the door slid to one side, and I found we were in the preparation form of the Great Hall. I turned as I heard the door close, and I did not see the door, just the wall. Okay, where is the door? I asked, and she laughed. It is a one-way door, can only be opened from the other side, Vivian said. Where is Danny? I asked. He does not get to see you until it is time for Louis to marry the two of you, Vivian said, and I blinked and looked to her. Louis, I said. I asked. Yes, he is our past high priest and stands as a father until we ascend the mountain, and he insists on being the one, Vivian said, and that just made me more so nervous. I was then given a sandwich to eat. I looked to Emmy. Are you nuts? I cannot eat right now, I told her, and they started to laugh. You have got to eat, Emmy said, and I took the sandwich from her. They all left me. I sat in that room thinking of all that had happened and what was about to happen. I was marrying Danny Lee. I could not believe this. All my dreams of being his, and the fact they were shattered after his father said no. Then all the trouble we went through. I was not only collared and branded, however, I was rose branded. It was a dense decree for one such as I to marry. Vivian came back into the room. I looked at her. Is it not failure to decree for me to marry Danny? I asked her. Child, there is no decree stating you may not marry one that is in Thorntoncy. If so, the high priest is in default of that decree twice over, she said. True, I replied. There is no reason for a rose to marry, as she belongs to her owner. Besides, the ownership overrules the marriage, Vivian said, and I smiled as I saw Barbara come to the door and stand. Grandmother, Aunt Patsy, they are ready for you, Barbara said. I looked to Vivian. Calm down, you are going to be just fine, she said, and took me by the hand, and Barbara took my other hand, and they led me out and across the great hall that was being decorated in the same colors as my dress. I heard music as we came closer to the door of the chapel. As we entered, I saw Emmett and Scott, each on one side of me. I stepped in between them and moved with them to where Danny stood in a suit, but almost the same colors as my dress, just a little darker. He turned and placed his hand out to me. I smiled as I placed my hand into his. He pulled me close to him and whispered in my ear, For today, you are free. Please relax, my Patsy Lee, he said, and I felt an unusual calm feeling come over me, and surprisingly, I was relaxed. He turned to Louis, who stood before the altar. The sanctuary was decorated in the same colors, where flowers were beautiful as they matched my dress. Everything was beautiful. Friends and family, we are here this day to bring together Princess Patsy Lee Sanders, Hamburg, and Executive Prince Daniel Hamburg, combining their love and celebration and the eyes of our Lord. Is there any here this day that feels what is about to take place is wrong and should not?" Lewis asked, and no one said a word. Then, with the sole allowance of our high priest, I shall continue. "Princes, do you take the hand and accept the guidance of Prince Daniel? Do you swear to love, cherish, and obey the prince until Odin depart you both from his lands?" Lewis asked. "I do with all my heart," I replied, and tears came to my eyes. "Are there words you wish to proclaim to the prince at this time?" Lewis asked. I looked to Danny. "Ever since I was in 18th level, you have been a dream to be held by you, to be loved by you, and to be with you. I gave that dream up once I found out that Danny Lee was an executive prince and a heartbreaker," I said with a laugh. "Now, I could not give you up unless the Lord departed us," I said with a bright smile. "I love you," I then added, ending my proclaim. He smiled, and then Lewis spoke again. "Prince Daniel, do you take the hand and accept the responsibility to care, guide, and cherish the princess, taking or placing not a single soul above her, doing this until time our Lord departs you both from his land? Do you further accept not to have another until your last breath has been taken?" "Think wisely, my son," Lewis said. I was not sure as to what was happening, yet I listened. "Father, I do," he said. "Do you have anything to proclaim to the princess?" Lewis asked him. "My love, my life, ever since I saw you, you were on my mind. When I slept, ate, sang, no matter what it was I did, I declare from that moment to make you mine, to have you as my wife regardless of what I had to do. Now you are mine, and by decree I will never let you go, nor will I be without you. You have given to me your freedom, and in return I give to you my life," Danny said, and I watched as a ring was placed on my left hand. It was the Humber crest. By the authority of the high priest, I proclaim the two, by the old decree of matrimony, not two yet one, within the Lord's loving arms. Let it be written, this marriage may not be dissolved for no reason. The prince may not sell or give his bride away, nor shall he collar her with no less than a gold collar. Also, until his last breath, may he not, by decree, have another other than her, be her free or otherwise. Your Highness, I, Louis Emmett Humberg, 16th High Priest of the Sultan, within the Garden of Estastar, pronounce you once again, one, and not two, into the loving arms of our Lord. Congratulations. May the Lord watch over you and guide you in your happiness," Lewis said, and I for a few moments was shocked. Danny, by decree, could have no other than me. I could not believe this. Danny grabbed me and kissed me and swung me around. "I love you," he said. "You best, for by decree you are stuck with me. Least you be found in default," I laughed. I will never be in default, he said. I have a question, I said. Ask, he replied. If I was to pass over, you still cannot have another? Be it wife or Thornton? I asked, not sure if I understood what just happened. True. If I do, then I am in default of treason to the throne, and I shall forfeit my life, thanks to my little loving brother. As treason did not mean that until he had the scepter in his hand, Danny laughed, and Emmett slapped him on the back. Like you would be found in default, Emmett said. Never, little brother, Danny replied. Whose idea was this? I had to ask, for I felt Lewis was punishing Danny for marrying me. Father asked the vows I wanted, and I told him old decrees. 'Tis mine, he said, and kissed me. Then, as if Lewis was reading me my mind, he spoke up. I am not that bad of a father, am I? He asked, and everyone started to laugh. No, Your Excellency, I smiled. Danny picked me up as all moved into the great hall. I moved to change the dress. That night was wonderful. We danced and had a very good time. Every story should have a happy ending. Do you not think? Until we meet again, join us in our world, another place, another time. Lord be with all. Patsy Lee, a dream come true. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. Those of you that was wondering about Vivian, she is the actual mother to Emmett and Danny, and Emiletta, as Emmett and Emiletta are twins. So that's why she gave Patsy her dress. Anyway, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I will address them as I can. I thank you for joining us. I hope you join us for the next story. And as Patsy says, until we meet again, the Lord be with thee. Mwah.